So welcome everybody to my channel. Thanks for joining me here. I want to talk to you real quick about an interview I had very quickly after my competition in York, Pennsylvania, where I got the 1,035-pound bench. We went to Ohio. We intended on going to the Arnold Classic. Everybody knows it got canceled. We went anyway. There was a lot of events holds. We got to watch some of the powerlifting. While I was in Ohio, my buddy Tracy Weiler, he set up a radio interview with a local station in Coshocton County, and they did a 45-minute interview with me. I thought it was going to be like a 10-minute quick little thing, but they had a lot of good questions, so we're going to put that video up and let you listen to it. It has a lot of good information on benching and my views on training, so hope you enjoy.
Arnold Festival, Sports Festival, a big deal for many, many years, decades here in Ohio. And one of the folks that is or was scheduled to be there, Jimmy Kolb. He is a power lifter, 09 graduate from Garraway High School, and holds multiple records that we'll talk about here in just a few moments. And Jimmy, thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me today.
And Jimmy, first of all, I'd like to get a little background on your powerlifting career. When did you become interested in lifting?
At the age of 14, I think I was scoping a bookstore in Canton for books on martial arts. I was in martial arts for 7 years, from 7 to 14. I came upon a bodybuilding book, and I just got interested, flipped through the book, and one of the athletes in that book had a hamstring that looked like a big veiny bicep, and I was very, very impressed by that. So I initially got interested in bodybuilding. Shortly into it, I realized you have two routes to take. You can get as big as you possibly can with bodybuilding, or you can choose to go the strength route with powerlifting to get as strong as possible. I found that being as strong as possible was more impressive, so I became interested in powerlifting and pursued it from there.
So what is the difference between the two then?
So bodybuilding, you're more concerned with the aesthetic look of your body. You're trying to build muscular hypertrophy or muscular size. You see them standing up on the Arnold stage, posing, in the little suits they wear.
And the oil and
the oil and the
that.
tans.
That was Arnold Schwarzenegger himself a bodybuilder?
That was
then?
he's the most famous bodybuilder in history.
Okay.
Now a powerlifter is not concerned with what they look like. There is no competition for the looks. It's more how much weight you can lift is the end goal. So the training is much different. And it's all strength derived. It has nothing to do with the look of the body at all.
Did you have a lifter or two that you admired at a young age, 13 or 14?
So early on, I was kind of on my own. I was lifting at my local YMCA in Dover, New Philly, Ohio, not far from here. And I got introduced to a man named Adam Hicks, who was actually a Ridgewood graduate. He was going to school down at Kent State. I got hooked up with him, and he introduced me to real hardcore powerlifting. He brought me to Blackstone's gym in West Lafayette, Ohio, and I got more familiar online once YouTube was pretty new at the time, with like the big guys like Ryan Kennelly, Scott Mendelson, Donnie Thompson, all the big lifters back in the early 2000s. So but Adam Hicks was the original one who taught me everything I know, brought me to Blackstone's gym, like I said, in West Lafayette, Ohio. I got introduced to guys down there like Rusty Bluck, Tracy Weiler, Avery Dotson, and John Blackstone himself that owns the gym, Dale Menifee, just to name a few. And had a really good crew down there. I lifted there for about 3 years, and that's where it all really started.
Okay, and when was your first competition?
So I started lifting at 14. When I was 18, so 4 years deep into training, I competed up in Canton, Ohio at the Iron Chamber Bench and Deadlift Championships. It's a state competition. I think I benched 585 that day as a teenager at 18 years old, and I think I deadlifted somewhere in the 600s.
Which is nothing compared to what we're about to talk about here.
Not quite,
okay.
not quite.
All right, and so what are your training methods these days? Well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Then how many competitions did you get in after that first one? Was it a regular thing?
It was a regular thing. I fell in love with it. They say in powerlifting you get bitten by something called the iron bug, and once you get bit by the iron bug, you're in it for life. And so far that's held true. I've been in, I'd say, upwards of 30 to 40 meets over the last competitive. I've been lifting for 16 years. I've been competing for 12. So over these 12 years, I've been in between 30 and 40 competitions.
Okay, I think I said earlier, 23 years old. You're 29 years old.
I'm
You've been
29.
at this for quite a while. Talk about some of your successes at these meets and competitions.
So my life goal when I was in middle school, when I first started, because when I first started, the 700-pound bench press had just been accomplished not too long before that, and the 800-pound mark had just been done by Ryan Kennelly in 2002, I believe. So my life goal when I first started was to eventually get to a 700-pound bench press. That's what I wanted to do before I died. When I was 19, I accomplished this goal. So that's where I really decided, wow, I could really take this far. At 19 years old, I would bench press 740 pounds, which is the second heaviest bench press done by a teenager in any weight class ever. When I hit 20 years old, I bench pressed 8. And then when I was 21, I ended up hitting 900 pounds for the first time in competition. Me and Tracy Weiler, and at the time, my girlfriend, Katie, drove to Lynchburg, Virginia. I competed at the WABDL East Coast Championships. WABDL's a federation in powerlifting. And I accomplished a 903-pound bench press that day at 242 body weight. 2 years later, at 23 years old, at the Arnold Classic, I won the Arnold Classic bench competition with a 950-pound bench press, also in the 242 weight class. After that, I stopped competing for a while, took a small hiatus, and that's where I ended up joining the military, which I'm still in for the next 6 months. The most recent accomplishment, this past weekend, March 1st, I competed in York, Pennsylvania, at York Barbell. It was an IPA competition, and I finally cracked the 1,000-pound bench press mark, where I hit a 1,035-pound bench press.
Okay, and we'll talk more about that because that has opened a few doors for you, hasn't it?
It has.
Okay.
It really has.
When you were in high school or anywhere else, did you participate in any other sports? Use the strength that you had developed to play any other sports competitively?
I did. I was in track all 6 years, 2 years in middle school, 4 years in high school. I threw shot put and discus. I didn't really see a lot of success in the shot put till my senior year in high school because I was really short and I wasn't one of these 50-foot throwers right out the gate. I threw just shy of 52 feet in the shot put when I was in senior in high school at 5'4". Discus, I wasn't always too good. I was throwing in the 100 feet range, but I wrestled a little bit in middle school. I didn't enjoy it. I would not play football, which they didn't particularly like me for. That's just kind of a sore spot with that high school. But that was pretty much it. I powerlifted all through middle school and high school. But they didn't understand that I wasn't lifting weights to improve upon a school sport. My sport was the lifting itself. And I was lifting to improve the lifting.
And you mentioned the gym in West Lafayette and other places that you train. Is there a culture of powerlifting in our region?
There is. It's hard to find. It's not a popular sport. A lot of people don't know about it. You ask somebody on the street what they think powerlifting is. Sometimes they might say, oh, like when they lift the weight overhead, like in the Olympics because it's televised, or when they lift the stones and the logs. Is that powerlifting? You're like, no, that's strongman. Those things are televised. Powerlifting is kind of obscure. It's getting more popular recently. But in West Lafayette, there's a gym. It's called Blackstone's Gym. It's since grown to a bigger facility. That's where you find all your powerlifting equipment and such. There's also an Anytime Fitness that just opened up, I understand, down the road from here. Some of the powerlifters have left Blackstone's Gym and gone to that gym. So you just have to know where to look and talk to people.
How did your experience in conditioning help you out when you joined the Marines?
So when I joined the Marines, I hadn't lifted weights for 2 years. I lost 40 pounds from simply just losing muscle and losing weight. The conditioning, I could run a 3-mile run in 20 minutes flat. I was 190 pounds. I lost all my strength and all my size. So I'd only got interested into lifting weights again, actually to try and improve my run time. So I started lifting weights and squatting to get my leg strength and conditioning up for the runs, and that's kind of what relit that spark. Got back into the competitive powerlifting, and now that I'm almost out of the military, this is what I plan to do full time for the rest of my life.
All right, and did you find that you mentioned that you lost a lot of weight and you got out of it for a little bit. Powerlifting is something really have to stay on top of and be diligent to stay in peak condition. Perhaps more in other sports. Is that fair?
I do believe it. I do believe it. Lifting weights, strength sports by themselves it's almost like having a second job, having to eat as much as you can, get the proper amount of calories, protein, carbs, things like that. I train 5 days a week, 3 to 4 hours a day. It's really grueling, and I can't stop and back off. If I want to keep myself where I'm at, I have to keep up on it.
Well, that's exactly what I want to talk about next. We'll take a quick break and be back with powerlifter Jimmy Kolb. He holds the all-time heaviest bench press for the 242 weight class. We'll be back with Jimmy once again right after these words. Once again with powerlifter Jimmy Kolb, and talking about your background, your successes as a power lifter. Can you share a little bit with us about your training methods? How do you do it? What do you do to get stronger?
So the training methods, you have to train very specifically. If you want to power lift, you got to power lift. If you want to weight lift, you got to weight lift. If you want to throw shot put, you got to throw shot put. So it's very, very sport specific training. Like I said, it's about 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. That's not as common. I do bench press 3 times a week with 2 upper back days. I don't train my lower body at all right now. I'm a bench only specialist.
Okay.
So they call us bench specialists in powerlifting. So I got 3 bench days a week. The first day is a very, very light, I call it a prehabilitation day, where I'm doing a lot of blood work in the upper body, shoulders, and the chest, trying to recover from my workouts. Nothing heavy, just for recovery purposes only. The second day is one of 2 what they call max effort days, where you're doing maximum effort with heavy weights. Wednesday, I usually change up I don't just flat bench press. Sometimes we do floor press, incline press, decline, dumbbells, board presses, what have you. The third day is my maximum effort, extremely heavy day, where I'm training for that competition platform style bench press. And then the other 2 days are just for upper back training only, because upper back strength is very important for heavy bench pressing. If I was doing the full body, when I was doing squat, bench, and deadlift, I would have 1 or 2 squat days a week, 2 bench days a week, and a deadlift day. But now that I'm doing bench only, I'm very, very training very specifically for just the bench press, and that's how I do it.
Are there any specific health issues that are particularly you need to watch out for as a power lifter? I would think in any kind of lifting, you're going to have moments where your blood pressure is going to, when you're in the middle of lifting, your blood pressure is very high, for example.
Well, you see guys bust their blood vessels in their, I think I actually busted one over this weekend, in the white of their eyes. Guys will bleed out their noses from all the pressure, things like that. All in all, statistically, it's a very safe sport. The thing where you see a lot of the problems come about is where you have the abusive steroid usage. That's what causes a lot of the health problems people see, where they have extremely high blood pressure, heart attacks at young ages. I know a lot of athletes in the past have died of heart attacks or strokes at 28, 29 years old. So there's an abuse of drug use in the sport. But other than that, just good technique, because you can get hurt lifting these heavy poundages. So you got to make sure you have a proper facility, proper equipment, proper training crew is very, very important for powerlifting as well.
Is there a point where you know that you've tried all the harder that you ought to try, or is your sport, you go as hard as you can every single day?
That's how I train. I go as heavy as I can on a year-round basis. Some people, the way they train is they'll train heavy for a while, then they'll take a deload phase, where they're kind of backing off on the weights. I have found my body responds to lifting heavy every weekend, every week, year-round, and I've done that for the last 16 years. My body responds to it. My bench went up 100 pounds for 3 years in a row. When I was 19, like I said, I benched 7. When I was 20, I benched 8. When I was 21, I benched 9. So my bench went up 100 pounds a year for 3 years in a row, which is very rare. But yeah, if you have to listen to your body. If I feel like I'm not going to progress, or I feel like I'm hurt or I'm beat up, I will back off. But all in all, as long as I'm feeling good and my central nervous system's feeling good, then I'm good to go, and I'll keep training heavy.
You have to endure a certain amount of pain to keep getting stronger.
You do. You absolutely. It's very, 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 very painful what you do, especially at these heavier poundages. It doesn't feel good to lift these weights. It feels good mentally, and afterwards you accomplish something great. But while you're doing it, the pressure and the lack of oxygen. You're burning a lot of oxygen during these heavy lifts. I've blacked out during a heavy bench before. I've dumped weights over my head before. I dumped 909 pounds over my head in Detroit. I dumped 903 pounds over my head in California. I dumped 850 pounds into my stomach in California. It's a very risky sport in terms of not so much that the injuries are high, but when the poundages do get heavier, during the bench press, the nature of the lift itself, the first place that barbell is going to drop, if it does go, is straight onto your body. Your body is directly underneath that barbell. Now, in the squat, if you lose it, you can dump it off your shoulders. The deadlift, it's beneath you. You can let go of the bar. The bench press, the bar is going straight down onto your body, so you do have to keep that in mind.
How can you tell if the pain that you are enduring is part of the process, or is there something, a voice that tells you, hey, something's not quite right here, I need to back off?
After 16 years almost of lifting, I know my body very well. I know how far I can push it. I know if I'm in pain. If you have pain that is debilitating, where you can't walk, or you can't sit, or you can't do daily functions, you're probably in some bad pain that you need to pay attention to. If I'm just in pain from the amount of pressure, just muscular pain, obviously everybody knows when you feel that burn, you're sore the next day, that's fine. There is a fine line, knowing when to stop, when to back off. But I know exactly what that is, and I'm able to monitor it very well.
Let's talk a little bit about nutrition. And getting back, you mentioned this in passing, but steroids, that's something that a lot of people associate fairly or unfairly with any kind of bodybuilding, lifting, etc.
Sure.
You have right here on your biography on Facebook that you are pursuing the drug-free raw side of lifting. What about the reputation, fairly or unfairly, and plus your philosophy about supplements?
So the steroid thing, I abide by very highly. I want to do this drug-free for the rest of my life. Now, to tell you that I've never thought about it would be a complete lie. Who hasn't thought about it when they reach a certain point in the sport? That's true. That's the honest truth. But I've managed to stick to my my goal and do this thing drug-free. My philosophy about it is anything can be done without them. It just takes a little bit longer. You got to work a little bit harder. They are real. They do work, but I don't advocate for them. And the health risks associated with them, to me, don't outweigh the benefits, so to speak. I think there's a lot more risk involved and health risk than there is good outcome. So I avoid the steroids at all costs. The way I make up for it is I wouldn't say I eat healthy. I eat a lot of food, not always good, but eating lots of food, the right foods, a lot of calories, a lot of protein. I make up for the lack of the artificial drugs with just getting a lot of protein in my diet. Generally 1.3 grams of protein per pound of body weight is the generally accepted rule of thumb when you're trying to gain size or strength. So for me, weighing right now 275 per day, I'm having to take in upwards of 350 grams of protein. It's very, very, very hard to do.
Eat a lot of steaks?
A lot of steaks, a lot of chicken, a lot of lean meats, a lot of anything to get my hands on. I'm on the seafood diet. If I see it, I eat it. That also helps that I'm sponsored with a company called Primera Sports, supplement company out of Tennessee, and they supply my protein needs, my supplement needs, free of charge. That helps a lot. So it's all about what you want, how you want to do it. I have many people I know in the sport that do use. Now, there's a difference between using and abusing with anything else in life, like any other drug. But I know a lot of people that do it. I have no quarrels with them. They're still my best friends. I love them to death. That's their choice. That's fine with it. It doesn't affect me at all. It's just a matter of how you want to do it, how quickly you want to do it, how long you want to stay in the sport. I want to have longevity. I want to do this. I tell people I want to do this thing for decades, not just years.
Is there lifting? How late in life do lifters continue to compete?
I have a friend up at my previous gym. After I left Blackstone's gym, I went to a gym called Iron Chamber up in Canton, Ohio. And I have a gentleman up there, a really good friend of mine. His name's Bob Nicholas, Robert Nicholas, Bob for short. And he right now is 76 years old, and he is still competing and setting records at his age.
Mm-hmm.
I started, like I said, at 14. There are people who start in their mid-20s. I know guys who just started when they were just hit 40 years old. but people do it till they're dead practically, just like golf. You know.
That's a great example.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's get into some even more fun stuff here and talk about some of your recent records. What's the world records that you hold?
So I have I'll call it a laundry list of world records. I think I stopped counting around 15 or so. What I'm more concerned with are what's known as the all-time world records, the ATWRs. They're very elusive. The all-time world record means, let's just use the bench, since that's what we're talking about. An all-time world record bench means a specific weight class. For me, right now, it's 275. An all-time world record means the most weight ever pressed in that weight class in history, regardless of age, drugs or no drugs, federation, doesn't matter. And that's what I just did this past weekend on Sunday, March 1st. We were in York Barbell, in York, Pennsylvania, and I was competing in the IPA Pennsylvania State Championships. IPA is another federation in powerlifting. I was competing in the 275 open division class, and I accomplished a 1,035 pound bench press. This surpassed the previous all-time world record bench at that weight class. The previous record was 1,031 pounds. That was held by a man named Scott Mendelson out of California. This was a very monumental lift for me, and this marks my third all-time world record. I hold 2 all-time world records in the 242 weight class, the weight class right below that, a 950 pound bench, as well as a 903 pound bench press. So 3 all-time world records and counting.
You have mentioned a sponsor moments ago. You've had at least one sponsor that's been with you for quite a while. Has this opened the door for other sponsors or other opportunities?
So it's very early to know exactly where this could lead. I got a lot of people talking to me right now. It's going to be a few more weeks and a few more months before I really get to step through those doors that open. Anderson Powerlifting has been with me since I was 18 years old. The gentleman that owns it and runs his name is Ken Anderson, and he picked me up as a sponsored athlete when I was 18 years old. Right after I bench pressed, I benched an IPF world record back in Cleveland, Ohio. This is in 2009. He was there. He had a booth. He had a table. After I set the world record, my grandpa insisted I go back and talk to him. I talked to him, and then a few months later, he picked me up as a sponsored athlete. So from 18 to now, he's been taking really good care of me. Primera Sports, like I had mentioned, supplies my supplementation. And then the gym we currently lift at in Manassas, Virginia, which is Unleashed Strength Gym, they picked me up as a sponsored athlete as well. So right now there's 3 businesses or companies that take care of me.
All right. Did it, after that lift, the 1,035 pound lift, what did it feel like to you?
So in the gym, I'm handling weights upwards and over 1,100 pounds in the bench consistently every single weekend. My philosophy is if you want to lift, you have a goal weight in mind for a competition, you should be handling that weight or more in the gym all the time and get used to it, used to handling heavier weight. So physically, I didn't feel beat up, I didn't feel trashed, I didn't feel bad. Mentally, I was an emotional wreck. Mm-hmm. Because I had been chasing this number for a very, very long time. Just a 1,000-pound bench press, period. Not let alone anything in excess of 1,000 pounds. Mentally, it's very hard for me to actually remember the lift itself. During the lift, during that lift and all that weight and all that pressure, it's very, very, very euphoric. And it's very, very difficult for me to remember what I just did. So I have videos for me to go back and relive that moment. During the lift, all the noise disappears. I can't hear anything. Once in a while, my vision will blur. Sometimes it goes a little bit dark from the lack of oxygen. So it's very hard to remember what I did. But afterwards, when I know I had gotten it, it was an explosion of excitement amongst me, my training partners, my wife, the entire room. It was something else.
Was setting that record a goal going into the competition or something you felt was an attainable goal?
It was. Basically, 1 year prior to this meet, up in Cleveland, Ohio, marked my very first competition back into competitive bench pressing. We were in Cleveland, Ohio. for the USPA Great Lakes Championships. I did what's called I bombed out. When you bomb out of a competition, that means you got no lift in. You accomplished absolutely nothing. So I bombed out in Cleveland a year ago. 4 months later, we were in Tyson's Corner, which is a place down near DC. I bombed out of that competition. 4 months later, I was in York Barbell. I bombed out there. 4 months later, I went to Allentown, Pennsylvania. I bombed out there. Exactly 1 year in, and 4 meets that I bombed out of in a row, I finally got this one lift. The meet prior in Allentown, I actually pressed 1,035 pounds. The one judge wouldn't give me the lift. They failed it. It was kind of a bad call. So I knew this lift was attainable because I had in my mind already done it, just not officially. And I wanted that specific number just so I could top Scott Mendelson's record by a few pounds.
Bombing out, just so I'm clear, is that when you don't have a lift, do you hold it for the right amount of time, et cetera, or you're disqualified?
You're disqualified from the meet. There's a lot of reasons for a lift to get failed. That means I didn't get any lift in whatsoever. Not a lighter weight, not anything less than 1,000 pounds or over it. I just couldn't get a single lift in. You have 3 attempts. If you're doing full power, you have 3 squats, 3 bench presses, and 3 deadlifts. I'm bench only, so I only had 3 lifts per competition to get a lift in. In those 4 meets in a row, anywhere from Cleveland to Virginia, I had bombed out of.
Now that you hold that 1,035-pound bench press record in your weight class, what's the next goal? What's next for you?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to relic in what I had just done and kind of enjoy it for a moment. But I was back in the gym yesterday. We went back up to our old gym, Iron Chamber, in Canton, Ohio. I was lifting the weights like normal. So I'm kind of going to regroup here in a couple weeks, figure out what direction I want to go. There's a couple of meets down in Pennsylvania near where we live in the June-July time frame. So I have an idea in mind to jump up a weight class and try and take that next record as well.
Is this your day job?
It's the day job that I enjoy. I want it to be, once I get out of the military, this is what I will do full time.
Okay.
I have coaching off to the side right now, and once I'm finally out, I will be doing coaching full time as a source of income, as well as just powerlifting on my own time. This is what I want to do till the day they fill me with embalming fluid.
Back to training once again, and we've talked about the physical aspects of training. We have talked about nutrition. Tell us a little bit more about the psychological component and how you continue to push yourself, number one, to stay with it, and number 2, at that moment when you're lifting.
So someone asked me just recently, is actually a client of mine, a really good kid down where I live. I'm coaching him right now. He asked me, he said, how do you stay motivated? When you're at the top, what motivates you to keep going? Because what else is there? I said, well, I'm in this sport to do what I want to do and get what I want to get out of it. If I happen to break records in the process or beat people in the process, that's just kind of a bonus. But I want to meet the goals I want to meet, regardless if it's a record or not. And I'm not done yet. 1,035 is just not even close to the end. So that's what motivates me day to day, week to week, year to year. But in terms of the initial, when you're doing these lifts, you can't have fear. I sustained an injury about a year and a half ago where I dropped 400 pounds on my chest from full lockout, slipped out of my hands, fell on my chest.
That had to sting.
It felt like I got hit by a car. I fractured 2 ribs. Luckily, it missed my xiphoid process at the base of my sternum. It didn't snap off. And I couldn't get out of bed or get out of my vehicle for 6 months without help from my wife. 400 pounds. Now, 1,000 plus, if that falls, it's going to cut me in half. It's probably going to kill me. But you can't have that fear. You can't live in fear. You can't lift with fear. You have to not think about those things. And I've dumped weights over my head. I've dumped weights into my belly in the 800, 900 pound range. And it doesn't matter. You just keep going. And you just can't dwell on those things. It happened. Okay, you keep moving. And it's just, no, you just have to have confidence. You have to have confidence, and you have to know, you have to convince yourself that you can do this. You can do this. This is attainable. As soon as you doubt for 1 second that you're going to not get this lift, you're not going to get the lift. You have to know. You have to convince yourself first and foremost that it is possible. And I have to do that every day I'm in the gym with these incredible weights. Every competition I go to, I have to convince myself that I can do this.
Our guest is Jimmy Kolb, a powerlifter. Do you ever have people come up to you? I know the answer to this, but people come up to you and they want you to perform stunts. Say, Jimmy, go over there and pick up that car. Or
they joke all the time, and I'm like, it's not quite like that. It's a little different. Like I said, if you watch the strongman on TV, and they're picking up cars and lifting logs and doing and lifting these giant stones, all these incredible things, and they have to understand I am built to do one thing, and my body is conditioned to do one thing, and that's just bench press these heavy weights. So it is kind of funny.
Do you ever accommodate any of that stuff?
Not in that time and moment. I'll kind of laugh at it. I'll kind of talk to them real quick. A lot of them are just people that want to meet me or get to talk to me for a minute and stuff like that. But no, I bench press. That's all I do right now.
Magnus Vermagnerson, is that a name that he was one of those strongmen from long ago? I think he was from Sweden.
Yes.
But,
yes.
Okay. All right, that's not what you do.
No, very, very successful. I think 4-time world's strongest man, which is almost unheard of. I think the record right now is 5 in a row, 5 titles. That is. Yeah, strongman is very, very, very different. I mean, you got strongman, powerlifting, Olympic lifting. It's all very, very different.
Do you follow those other related sports though?
I kind of do. I follow some of the strongman. I was on a team called MHP a few years ago, back when I was younger, between 2012 and 2015. I was sponsored by a company called MHP, Maximum Human Performance, a supplement company, and they sponsored a lot of powerlifters and strongmen. And I actually got to meet Brian Shaw, who at the time was the world's strongest man and won the Arnold Classic. We went to Elite FTS, which is a gym in Columbus, Ohio, for a photo shoot together. So we did a 9-hour photo shoot with me and this world's strongest man for 9 hours on a Monday for MHP to use our pictures as advertisements for their products in the magazines. So I do follow it here and there. I follow the big guys. I don't know every single one of them. I tend to stick to powerlifting since that's my sport, but I am somewhat familiar with other sports.
We do need to get to break here very shortly, but just very quickly about the Arnold. You initially were going to be at the Arnold for the trade show, correctly?
I was. We were, yes. That was that was the reason why we came to Ohio. We took vacation. We got our friend with us who competed with us over the weekend. We brought him up with us, looking to go to the Arnold, and we do it every year for our sponsors, Anderson Powerlifting. And it got kinked, and that just blew the whole world is mind blown right now. It's never happened, not once. So that kind of foiled our plans a little bit. We look forward to it as soon as the Arnold is over. We're looking forward to the next one, even though it's a year from now. So that really threw a wrench in our plans, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's not worth dwelling over because it's done. We're still going to go to Columbus this weekend. There's some smaller shows being held in different parts of the city. We're going to go and visit, see what we can see, maybe stop at Rogue Fitness, pick up some equipment, and then we'll just kind of conduct the rest of the weekend.
Just so the listeners know, you had agreed to come in here and speak with me before we knew that the trade show was going to be canceled. So
This is I just found out literally about 24 hours ago. It was that's what everybody's upset about. Is it happened 2 days prior to the event starting.
Yeah,
that's what.
We're back once again with powerlifter Jimmy Kolb. And so, do you have any business at all now at the Arnold, or the trade show was that it?
That was pretty much it. I've competed before. This year was purely just to go to the venue and work as a vendor at one of my sponsors, the Anderson Powerlifting booth. That's where they get a lot of business. We sell new product, new things that have come out last year. They lost a lot of opportunity, as it did everybody, with this event being canceled. So now that we're not doing that, we're going to go down to Columbus anyway, go check out some of the local gyms, maybe stop at Westside Barbell. I'm definitely going to stop at Rogue Fitness. We got to pick up some equipment for the gym to take back home to Virginia. That's pretty much what we're doing now.
All right, and just back to your competition once again. Quickly, we talked about the psychology. When you know you're going into a competition, March 1st, for example, and okay, I'm going to lift 1,035 pounds. I'm going to press 1,035 pounds. What do you do to get yourself mentally and physically prepared for that moment leading up to the minutes before you compete?
It used to be one of two ways. When I was younger, when I was here in Ohio, it was take hits of ammonia, get smacked in the face, yelling, screaming, intense, intense, intense. And I realized, wow, that wastes a lot of energy. That takes up a lot of energy before I do the actual lift. As I got older and wiser, I found I need to calm down. Maybe be ready inside, but physically, outwardly, I'm calm. I'm collected. I may right before the lift get a little amped up. Uh, I have to remind myself that I do these weights and a hell of a lot more all the time. My body's used to it. It's not a shock. Um, Actually, this successful lift was actually my third attempt of the day. I missed my opener of 1,000 pounds. I jumped to 1035 on my second, and I missed it. I got it all. I touched, got all the way up to the top, waiting for the judge to give me the rack command. Because you have to listen to the commands in the bench. Also, the judge tells you when you come down to the chest, you pause. The judge says press. You come up. You have to hold it till the judge says rack. I was about to get the rack command on that second attempt and just fell into the rack and I lost it. So I had to repeat it on my third. So 3 attempts deep. I still had the energy to come back and get that lift successfully. So for that lift, I just had to remind myself, again, the normal things. You do this all the time. It's normal. You're with your buddies and your wife, and you're doing what you always do. But that lift in particular, that last attempt I had for the day, I'm like, look, I do not want to bomb out of my 5th meet in a row over the course of these last 12 months, and I have to get that record from Scott Mendelson. I wanted it that bad. I was able to pull it out of the air after missing the first 2 attempts.
Do you mentioned you don't get yourself all amped up an hour, half an hour ahead of time, but what about that moment right before? Does adrenaline play a factor?
It definitely does. I don't know if I feel it particularly. I don't know if it's just other factors kicking in. Adrenaline definitely has something to do with it. Ammonia is something very, very common that I use when I'm going extremely heavy. For that last attempt, my buddy Andrew, who was there, one of my liftoff guys, had an ammonia capsule, snapped it, took several hits off of it. It wasn't enough. Got a real big, deep inhale on the last one, cleared my mind, got me juiced up, amped up to go, and just, had to go through all the same processes, laying down the exact same way on the bench, taking the exact same grip I always do, taking the breaths, and doing the same routine I do for every other lift I've done the last 16 years to be successful.
What would you consider, whether it's the 1,035-pound bench press or something else, your proudest moment, your greatest accomplishment?
It has to be this lift.
Okay.
I've wanted to be there. The 1,000-pound bench club has, I believe, 7 members. 7 people in human history, have bench pressed 1,000 pounds or more. I am part of that club now. I've wanted it since I actually attempted this weight back in 2015 before I took my hiatus and then joined the military, and I missed it. And it's been eating away at me ever since. And I was sitting down on the couch with my wife there on Quantico, and she's like, "What do you want in life?" We're having a very deep, wife and husband conversation. And I said, "I want to bench 1,000 pounds." And at that moment, that's when it started back up. And I've been hacking away at it for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. So it's been 16 years in the making. Many, many bomb outs, many lost friends, many disconnected family members here and there. A lot of sacrifices being made to get this lift. So this is my proudest moment in the history of me doing this.
What potentially should you continue to improve and move up in your sport? How lucrative can it potentially be?
There's not a lot of money involved with the sport. I didn't pick the right sport to make money. That's the sad part about the sport. It just hasn't picked up with cash. This particular competition, when I competed in the IPA, the International Powerlifting Association, if you break an all-time world record in their Fed, they give you a $1,000 cash prize. When I won the Arnold in 2014, there was a $2,000 cash prize. So in 16 years, I've made $3,000. You put that by the hour, you're looking at cents on the hour. It's not that much, but so you have to look elsewhere besides the competitions. You have to look at revenues such as coaching, training people, which is what I'm starting to do now off to the side. And when I'm out of the military, I want to make my full income training people, working with people, coaching people, taking the knowledge I have and the accomplishments I have and passing that along to other athletes and seeing them succeed. So, I'm going to do it I'm going to be involved in the sport in one way or another until the day I will die with the sport.
Do you have plans to move away from Virginia after 6 months?
So we have developed a very, very, very strong family down at our new gym called Unleashed Strength. The gym owners are amazing people. We have an amazing group of guys down there, a lot of nice folk. And it's obviously a friendly enough environment where my wife decided to pick up the weights and start lifting herself. So because we have such strong relationships down there with all the people that we have, we are not going to leave. We are going to stick around the area, move closer to the gym so that we can be there more and help it grow.
Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today, or your friends in the area that might be listening?
So I leave you with this. If you want something in life, no matter how outlandish, how extraordinary it might seem, if you truly want that said goal, you will do it. You will do what you need to do, make the sacrifices. You will. I was raised by my mother, and she taught me to not believe in limits. Limits are fictitious. It's fiction. It doesn't exist. If I believed in limits, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So pursue whatever it is you want, no matter what anybody says. Hey, it's dumb, it's stupid. If it's what you want out of life, you pursue it, you do it, you put your heart and soul into it, and you will get there.
Jimmy, Katie, thank you for being here with us today. Congratulations on your world record, and best wishes and best of luck in the future.
I appreciate you very much for having me.
That is Jimmy Kolb, power lifter, holds the 275-pound class world record for bench press, 1,035 pounds.